Over the past decade, calls to end gender-based violence have reached fever pitch. However, it seems that little information is given to those that desire to change their ways. Having reached a point where he desperately wanted to change and not knowing where else to turn, Sibusiso Hlabangane poured his heart out on social media, chronicling his own abuse and the abuse that he unleashed on those around him. Join us as we unpack his journey and what led him to wanting to stop. I invited you today because I saw your posts on Facebook and you were expressing something that I felt very deeply about. I firstly need to say, you're very brave, because the honesty and the authenticity in which you were expressing yourself, Kulama Post Wako, it was almost as if you had gotten to a place where you just wanted to purge. So I literally wanted to have a conversation with you, sit down and understand, Swuguti, what could have driven you there? Because we all know that 2020 literally made us sit down and reflect, and a lot of us had time to kind of decide which way you want to go. So on those posts, it looked like you were also at that point where you were trying to change your direction.
Correct. Where I live, I literally live alone. So during this lockdown period, I had a lot of time to really think deep about who I am, where I'm from, why I'm the person that I am. I'm not a pleasant person, so to speak, just to put it, quite bluntly, yeah. So, and then I thought to myself, something is wrong here. This needs to change. Okay, so I grew up in Pimville, which is my hometown. I've pretty much lived there all my life. Middle-class family, middle-sized family of 5, all the toys, all the clothes, good food. You would never think that a person that comes from that sort of environment can come out and be bitter, okay? However, I did become bitter. Throughout my life, I've always been anxious because I had a father figure that is very dominant, very violent. Steering. Even if I show my mom, scream, smashing and breaking of things, and there's but nobody would come and knock and say, hey guys, what's going on? Nobody would intervene. And that's basically what happens in the community. Cowardly men get away with these kind of things because of other cowardly men. And I would like to be one of the people that actually stand up and say, Ebafit, you know what, this thing has to stop at some point.
So did you find yourself ending up following in his footsteps and his behavioral patterns?
No, look, I was groomed to be that person. He used to teach me to become violent towards women, to become violent towards other men.
How so?
He would tell me, Ilwa, after beating my mother, the only thing that my father's ever taught me is to after hitting my mother so hard. And that was literally saying, this is how a woman should be treated.
How did that affect you and your relationships as you were growing up?
I have done so much damage. Utabantu are always on the back foot when dealing with me because of the reputation.
What prompted you to go on social media?
And the people around me, I had to know, man, wait a minute. I can't be blamed for this. Yes, I did play a role in it. However, let me just set the record straight with where's all this coming from.
Are you excluding yourself from the role of being the abuser, of being the perpetrator as well?
I'm not by any means excluding myself from it. But I'm saying I want to open up conversations around how does a person get to where I am. Okay? I'll take full responsibility for every single thing I've done. But I also want to share that every single thing in EU, I learned it in the home where I was supposed to be nurtured and protected. Mina utshwala ngabufunda endlini. Ama-drugs ngawafunda endlini. Violence ngayifunda endlini. Crime ngayifunda endlini. Every single thing that is wrong that I've done or sort of experienced, I learned it endlini la ngihlala khona under my parents' house, and especially from my father. And I know my mom, she played a role in being an unpleasant entity in my life. I don't want to touch too much into that one, but I'm big in our life because I believe she could have done a better job protecting me from this monster.
Did she ever try to leave?
She did. She did.
But they're together still?
Yeah.
In your romantic relationships,
yeah,
did you carry any of the traits of Ubaba no Mama?
Yeah. I used to beat women. Fortunately now, I've got a lady who would say, when I understand, I would say, I've got this personality, rough or violent. So she immediately, she does the opposite. Whereas the ones before, then the situation would be explosive. They like these sort of people like me. I grew up most of the time, most of my life, not having a problem to attract females because of the whole aura, rough and tough.
So your violent nature was attracting women?
That's what happens. I mean, if you can look generally in the township, the thugs are the ones that skip the girls.
And they'd be okay with you beating them?
Oh, well, they never leave because of that. They could leave for maybe other reasons, financial difficulties in Mara. It's never been a problem because of the violence.
You've never been left because you were violent?
No.
No woman? Were you ever violent with your current partner?
Yeah, a few times.
And she stayed?
Yeah, she's still there. The good thing is that with her, she was more understanding of where I come from and why I'm the person that I am.
If I understand correctly, Sbu, the whole, one of the main reasons you posted on Facebook was because you had gotten to a point where you no longer want to continue being this person. You want to change and find better ways of dealing with who you are in order to become a better person. Am I understanding correctly?
100%. And you know what? I'm happy to say I've gotten feedback from people. This is a change. And to just answer your question correctly, I would say, yes, I want to change, but mainly I want to sort of expose iqiniso ukuthi
or address
machita. Do not keep quiet about these things because we own these things. That is why it won't explode one day. But because we own these things, we don't talk about them. To post those things, a lot of guys were coming to me, but man, why are you hanging your dirty laundry in public like that? But Buffett, we need to start to talk about as party. I bet my father to become the prick that he is. He probably went through something similar as well. So it continues this thing. So at some point, address them so that we can become better fathers to our children. Right now, I don't know how to be a good father to my son.
What I found interesting about your situation from your posts and also having spoken to you is that everybody who has the willingness to change something in themselves has some sort of support. If I'm an alcoholic and I want to get off alcohol, I can go to Alcoholics Anonymous and be taught how to stop being an alcoholic. But if I'm an abuser, I have nowhere to go. And this is why I've requested somebody who could literally come on and perhaps give you some tips and skills on things that you can use in your journey of moving from being a perpetrator to literally helping other perpetrators to stop being perpetrators while dealing with your own abuse at the same time.
Okay, yeah, makes perfect sense. I've always known ukuthi I need something ezonginceda to deal with my trauma.
So, Siskosi, the reason I asked you to come through and join us for high tea is because I saw a post, Awagasbu, on Facebook, where he was literally pouring his heart out to cyberspace, really.
To the world.
To the world. And I found it very interesting, Uguti, during that point in time when abuse and gender-based violence was being spoken so much about, there was this man who openly and bravely came on to social media and said, I've experienced these types of things and I've also perpetrated these types of things and I no longer want to be there.
Yep.
In my opinion, that seemed like a cry for help.
Yeah.
Would you feel that it was, Boo?
It was, and definitely it was.
Yeah. Is that normal?
Well, it is normal and very unique and important because what it says is that it's a turning point in his life. And I think that is the best ever point that we want to work with. A person who has come to their own realization ukuthi indlela engiyiyo, indlela engenza ngayo izinto, indlela engiphatha ngayo abantu in general and maybe, you know, gender-based violence in particular is not the right way. Because it all begins with that realization. That's where it all begins. Without that, we don't get very far.
Do you find that a lot from people who are perpetrators and have gone through their own abuse situations for them to stand up and say, enough, I don't want to do this anymore? Abantu besilisa specifically.
Unfortunately for many of us, and Usbu mentioned that earlier on, ukuthi, although it is perpetrated individually by one person against another, right? We always have a society that are silently applauding this behavior by the silence. Wonke umuntu uyezwa ukuthi kuyaliwa endlini, and nobody does anything about it, right?
What should they do?
They should intervene. They should intervene because, as he says, and I think this is the most powerful statement that you've made, Sibusiso, you know, cowardly men get away with cowardly behavior because of the collusion of other cowardly men.
You know, the interesting thing is that when I became a teenager, right, my mother said to me, "Somdala, solumuholo Sibusiso ne, and sonale madla, what's up? Stand up for me when he tries to hit me." And that was a turning point. Actually, I was able to actually stop my father from beating my mother from then on.
And I have to echo that from my own experience in my own home. When my father, the one time I flew into his face. I was 15 years old. I flew into his face and I said to him, never, ever, ever. And on that day, I said to him, you and you're going to have to kill me. Because if you don't, I'm going to kill you. And I meant it, and it became impi, serious. Yes, stratini. I had 18 like this, stratini. And I said, you will never do that again. And that's the thing that needs to happen. Somebody has to put a stop to it because we teach people how to treat us, right? And silence is consent. And it is by those things, consciously and silently, that we let them know that it is okay for them to treat you like that. We are beginning to frown on these things more silently, but it's going to take people like Usbu to be at the forefront of things and be the voice that dares to talk about it.
obviously, because we are going through this whole process of evolution as a society, and abantu abafana noSibu who say, I no longer want to do this type of thing. What do you do, Kos? Because it's one thing for Sibu to say, hey guys, this is what I did, this is what I went through, this is what is happening. Then what?
Yeah. So you know, every story or every person has their own journey, life journey. So it is for everyone to walk back to the crime scene and to re-evaluate, to understand where it came from, right?
Which is what he's done.
Which is what he's done, yeah. It is useful to understand where things have come from, right? And so you have that conversation with yourself, but to also start having that conversation outside of yourself, you know, with your peers, with the people who were your key accomplices in being who you are. I'm curious, though, about Ubaba Kusapil.
Yes.
What is the possibility of having that conversation with him? And I'm not saying a confrontation.
Yes.
I'm talking about a conversation. And it is about having a conversation about, tell me about your childhood. A man-to-man, child-to father conversation that just become curious about what has it taken for my father to be the way that he is.
You know, because this would be almost an impossible task, because this is a man who will never admit to his wrongs.
And what I'm inviting you to consider is not a witch hunt or a guilt finding.
Yeah.
You know, you're going there to understand.
Why? Why is that important?
It is important because it humanizes his father, right? Without condoning his behavior. Because if we let things be, they become transgenerational. Or banjalo, unje.
Loya mndeni unjalo.
Exactly. That sort of thing, right? And it takes someone to do something different for us to get a different result. Be friends with your father, and this is about beginning perhaps to have a relationship you've never had with him before.
You seem nervous about it.
I don't see that happening because this person that we're talking about is not a very he would be immediately defensive, he would be immediately wary, and there's no getting into that, man. I bet you, even my mom himself does not know ukuthi kuze kanjani this man abe kanje.
Okay. I'm always one that says, while people are alive, we have an opportunity to talk. Because many a times, when people have died, we wish we had asked this, we wish we had asked that. So when we're talking about social evolution, it is about the opening of, you know, in Bible speak, they talk about curtain, the renting. It is the shift in consciousness.
Yeah.
That's our biggest ally on this journey. So you begin to light a candle into that darkness, right? You begin to light that candle, and the more you can know, the more light you're bringing in. So there's no point in barking at darkness. It never dispels darkness.
Yes.
You've got to bring light.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. You've got to bring light. So it is about beginning to removing the weeds and planting the seeds.
But on a practical level, Kos,
Yes.
if I'm Sibu, what do I do? Because you're saying, go and start this conversation, no babwak, and he's saying this is inaccessible to him. So on a practical level, what does he do?
There are things that can happen individually, and these are the things I'm talking about, but there are things that he would benefit from a professional conversation. So it's about learning a new skill, relational skill. And it's about having reflective moments with yourself and being able to identify, learn to look is a principle of learning to be on high alert at yourself. Because you are going to have to be your biggest ally on this journey. so that you're able to recognize those moments when you get set off, and be able to call your own time out.
My personal journey of making the decision from being an abuser to stop, because I was very abusive. I've said this over and over again. I was abusive towards my children. I was abusive towards my now ex-husband. I was an abusive human. I was abusive to everybody. And my personal journey of coming out of that started with me first confronting my abusers, which at that point in time were my parents, or my mom specifically, because she was physically abusive, hectically so, but she was physically abusive because her mom was physically abusive. And then we had to have that round table talk of this abuse can't continue anymore, because I was starting to perpetuate it on my children, specifically on my son, and I no longer wanted to be that person. So I was fortunate to have the opportunity of sitting my mother and my grandmother down and saying, I don't want to be this person anymore. And I am this person because of who you were to me. And now I am being this person to my son. And I don't want my son to be that person. The fact that you've started that process, I repeat, is commendable. What you also need to understand is that it's not a journey you can walk alone. You are going to need a lot of support. You are going to have to find new ways of doing things. You are going to have to find new friends, new circles to move within. And it is going to be a long journey, Sibu. I would be fascinated to know in the next year or 6 months how far you've gone in this journey. And I'm asking you not to give up. We need to be better, guys.
Yeah.
All of us. Women included. But we'll get to the girls. We'll get to the women. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our show. Thank you for allowing me into your homes. And I do hope that from these conversations, you too can find a little piece of hope to make the world a better place. Until next time, love and light. High Tea with Noni, in association with Kericho Gold Tea, supplied by Love Tea Time.